you so much for sharing the names of your loved ones with us and allowing us to share your grief. You have given enormous sacredness to this sanctuary. You have allowed us to honor your cherished loved ones with you. We are privileged for this trust. We can experience a flurry of emotions. We want to feel these feelings because they attest to the deep love we had for the departed. Because these feelings are within us, nothing, not even death, can sever that love. Memory best confers immortality on the departed. We know that none of us is going to escape death's clutches. Death is a common denominator. It's very neutral in itself. The academic American Encyclopedia claims that death is the sensation of life resulting from irresistible change in cell metabolism. A little bit scientific. It's something that as humankind binds us together. Grief is often defined as acute sorrow. It is the entire range of naturally occurring human emotions that accompany loss. We humans are people who bond with one another. It's in our DNA, our genetic programming. The quality of our connection brings higher highs and lower lows. When a tie is loosened, we grieve. It's a normal and natural reaction to loss, and the most powerful of all our emotions. The difficulty is that we have been socialized to believe these emotions are abnormal and unnatural. We are unfamiliar with all the physical discomforts that often accompany grief. Chest discomfort, frequent crying, difficulty sleeping, poor appetite or overeating, numbness, headaches, exhaustion, heart palpitations, listlessness are but a few of the reactions we might experience. Each of us is a unique individual, and no two of us grieve in the same way. When my Uncle Dick died, my Aunt Ruth suddenly needed to have all the curtains in the living room taken down, the windows washed, and new curtains ironed and put up. My dad died at the beginning of October. Because my mother did not approve of tears during the wake and funeral, I suppressed my feelings. However, when I went to pick up a Thanksgiving card at a drugstore in Everett Square that's now a bank in November, I suddenly realized that I could never, ever again purchase a card for Mother and Father. I stood in that store and wept profusely every tear I had hidden. The ground was frozen when my dad passed, so they kept my father in his coffin in a little chapel at the top of the cemetery hill. I must have driven the 83 miles to his burial site 10 times in the month ahead, because for me, completion could come only when I could see the ground had been moved and know that his coffin had been placed under the earth. Dr. Sidney Simon, founder of the Values Clarification Movement, used to say, "The tears are the healing." It's an interesting fact that the ingredients in our tears are the very same as are in amniotic fluid. May our tears lubricate our souls. I was quite touched by the line that Sue St. Germain read from the minister Michelle Butti's A Blessing. In a spirituality group I belong to, we have explored the question, what happens to us when we die? The thought that mystery receives us when we die is most comforting. One of the concepts in the cottage meetings and mission statement that came forth as significant was that we are a caring community. That's helpful because one of the most important tools in the recovery of grief is that we need to relate to one another. We don't heal alone. We must be able to tell the others all the aspects of our grief in detail. Just getting it out makes it much more real for us. We also must be understanding listeners without judgment. One of my favorite lines of the Dalai Lama, which many of you have heard me say before, is that we can get along without spirituality or religion, but we cannot grow without friendship. Confiding in another person is hard work. We have fears that we might be a burden or they won't understand. We might think, wrongly so, that there's a set of right words to say. If you don't feel ready right away, that's perfectly okay. You must go at your own pace. Sometimes it's healthiest to see a professional. The biggest difference between them and us is they devote their whole life to helping people conquer grief, overcome fear, and achieve resolution for complex decisions. They are trained in sympathy and compassion. UU Middleboro has a pastoral care team that you can ask support from. Or if you know someone is grieving, you could mention it to Reverend Peter or one of the team. Journaling is a most helpful tool to use in coping with our grief. The journal is best small, so you can carry it with you and jot down feelings whenever they arrive. If your loved one passed suddenly, as did Bob Waterman, you might want to write them a letter in your notebook and include all the words you might have said personally had they died less hasty. It's useful to write rapidly. We don't want to refine or censor ourselves. In the book, 10 Habits for Grief and Loss, it suggests, when journaling, you're telling the story that no one else has the time or inclination to hear. And you're telling it to yourself because you know it will add value to your life in ways that no one else can comprehend. Don't try to cross out or rewrite anything. Those words are part of you, and crossing them out blocks you from exploring your relationship with them until the underlying issues behind them crops up again. Simply pour out what is in your heart. It will add a touch of serenity to your turmoil and lead to greater confidence. When we lose someone, a piece of ourselves is gone. We are no longer current spouse, daughter, son, parent, friend, lover. We need to redefine ourselves proportionately to the depth of the relationship. There is heartfelt emptiness. It requires soul-searching, courage, and rediscovery. We need to adapt for the future. Self-care is essential. We must treat ourselves as if we were in intensive care because we have truly been shattered. Quiet time or meditation is important. I was taught to sit quietly. I usually sit on the couch. Sometimes I read something inspirational for a couple of minutes. Bob Waterman and I used to read Staying Healthy with the Seasons. I just opened it where there was a note card that read, "The summer solstice has passed, and with it the dawn of a new season. Season of light and warmth, season of refreshment and leisure, time of renewal and growth, and time for watering and pruning and getting rid of the weeds. So this is a good time to come within, to slow down and be with one another in quiet and peace. We have no one to be responsible to right now, nothing to accomplish. We have a chance to let the world do what it does, and we can just listen to the spirit deep within. We're going to just breathe right now. But first, let us take a deep, cleansing breath, one that can let go of anything that will disturb our tranquility. At this point, I would return to breathing in and out. Self-care requires that we attend to eating right and exercising. I work with varying degrees of success with these. Intellectually, I know caring for my body is a way of loving myself. Doing the things that bring me joy and pleasure also supports me. Because art, music, and theater are so important to me, I must make room in my life to have them available to me. Allowing what we value to have a place of prominence and enables bliss to have an entryway. I grew up seeking approval. Somehow I thought that if others acknowledged me for good deeds, I was doing it right. I took that as the seal. As an adult, I have come to see that loving myself cannot be dependent on affirmation of others. I work hard to see that I have value just in who I am. People provide mirrors for me, revealing facets of myself that otherwise remain murky. In the end, there is a gentleness to my self-care. In Death and Dying, Bruce Long writes, "No human life can be filled with a sense of meaning and efficaciousness action unless it is lived in full acceptance of the fact of death. He who tries to ignore death by deluding himself into believing that he, his relatives, and his possessions will endure forever, robs himself of the purposeful life which can come only to him who unflinchingly accepts death as an integral part of life. Death needs to be met not only as an event at the end of life, but as an ever-present ingredient in the life process itself. In Death in the Final Stages of Life, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross states, "There is no need to be afraid of death. It's not the end of the physical body that should worry us. Rather, our concern must be to live while we are alive. We have the capacity to be a special person, and like anyone who has ever existed or ever will exist again. To the extent that we become captives of culturally defined role expectations and behavior, not ourselves, we block our capacity for self-actualization." During an interview, Wes Moore said that when we find that thing that makes our heart beat faster, we come alive. What's that for you? Knowing that is the final tool to help you live a full life. We have talked about death and grief. We have shared the importance of allowing another in, journaling and self-care. Finally, we have shared the value of self-actualization. In some workshops I did with Dr. Bernie Siegel, he's one of the doctors who's most knowledgeable about healing people who are in the process of dying. He says that death's not the worst tragedy. The worst tragedy is not to have loved. May we all continue to love despite the pain of loss it could bring. In the book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay, it reminds us that there was love in the world before our loss, and there is love surrounding us now, and love will remain beside us through all of our life that is yet to come. The focus will change. Love will never leave, and it's everything. One of our most important spiritual exercises in life is crossing back and forth for the ever life bridge between what was before our lives and what is now. Living in grief is continually crossing and recrossing that bridge. Survival in grief lies in finding the connection between the life that was and the life that is thrust upon us. We can hold on to nothing, not feelings, not thoughts, but love carries us. It shifts and changes. It's our bedrock, our home base. It allows us to travel in the present. This is the blessing I wish for myself and all of you.